That is the funniest thing I have heard all night.
I have plenty more where that came from. It is good to see you smiling.
I don't even know where to start because nothing about this feels real anymore. For years, I watched her slip away from me, piece by piece. Not in a violent, obvious way. She didn't scream or storm out. She just ignored me. Pretended I didn't exist sometimes, like I was a ghost in our own home. I tried to talk to reach her, but every attempt bounced off walls she had built around herself. I thought it was distance, exhaustion, maybe even depression. I didn't realize it was intentional. It started subtly. She stopped asking about my day. She stopped sharing hers. Bedtime conversations became monosyllables. The laughter we used to share disappeared. Every touch, every gesture that had once meant something now felt like a formality. I held on to hope, thinking it was just a phase. But deep down, I knew the truth was worse than I imagined. I didn't suspect cheating at first. Not really. I told myself she was just tired, stressed, maybe even bored of the routine. I tried to reignite the spark, date nights, little surprises, heartfelt letters, but she brushed them off. She never refused outright, but the spark I once felt in her eyes was gone. And in its place, a blank stare, an indifference that cut deeper than any argument could. Years passed. I watched her become distant, her attention drifting toward her phone, her friends, her work. She ignored me, yes, but she wasn't lonely. She was engaged somewhere else, somewhere I didn't belong. Every time I tried to confront her, I was met with excuses, denial, or worse, laughter. "You're imagining things," she would say, smiling as if I were a child making baseless accusations. And I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her. But every instinct screamed otherwise. Then, one day, the truth landed like a hammer. I didn't find texts or calls or even stumble onto evidence by accident. No, she told me herself. Or at least she tried to. I had come home early from work hoping to surprise her. I had imagined the smile, the excitement, the warmth of seeing each other in the middle of the day. But instead I walked into a scene that froze me in place. She was on the couch, laughing, and not with me, not with anyone I knew. She was laughing with him. My stomach sank as my eyes adjusted, taking in the scene. A man I didn't recognize, sitting too close, touching her arm in a way I knew had no place in our marriage. I stood there, frozen, and then she noticed me. Her laughter stopped, and for a moment she seemed unsure. And then she smirked. "Relax," she said, almost mockingly. "It's just a friend. Don't get dramatic." I couldn't speak. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline surging. "Friend?" I asked, my voice low, shaking. "You call this a friend?" She shrugged, rolling her eyes. "You've been imagining problems where none exist for years. Can't you just chill?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her until she remembered who I was. But something in her eyes stopped me, the smug, defiant look that told me she didn't care, that she had been doing this for a long time, and now she knew I knew. I left that day, drove around aimlessly, letting the rage and heartbreak course through me. I didn't confront her further, didn't fight, didn't beg. Because I realized something. Her disregard wasn't just about cheating, it was about disrespect. It was about dismissing me for years, treating me like I was invisible while she lived her secret life. Weeks passed, but the image haunted me. I stopped speaking to her in the ways I once did. I went through the motions of life, keeping distance, letting the silence between us grow thicker, and she, slowly, began to feel it. The walls she had built so carefully around her actions were starting to crumble, not from my words, not from my confrontation, but from her own guilt. I watched it happen like a slow, painful collapse. She started noticing my absence in ways she hadn't before. The way I no longer stayed up to hear her laugh, the way I no longer asked her about her day, the quiet intensity of my presence, all of it seemed to weigh on her. And slowly, regret began to eat her alive. It started with small things. A glance too long at the empty spot across the dinner table. Hesitation when she reached for my hand. Frantic, whispered apologies when she thought I wasn't listening, but I was listening. I had been listening, silently, for years, and now I let the silence speak. She tried to explain herself, almost pathetically at first. "I didn't mean I was lonely, Her words faltered under the weight of her own guilt. I didn't respond. Because after years of being ignored, I had no interest in words that came too late. Actions mattered now, and her inaction for years had already spoken volumes. Then came the confessions. She told me everything, the months, the lies, the moments she had chosen him over me. Each word felt like another nail in the coffin of the marriage I had once believed in. But there was a strange satisfaction in hearing it, not joy, but clarity. The deception that had haunted me for so long was finally revealed, fully in her own voice. I realized then that the regret I saw in her eyes was real. It had taken years to manifest, but it had arrived. And I understood something essential. Sometimes the pain of betrayal isn't immediate. Sometimes it grows slowly, like a shadow creeping across a room. Sometimes it consumes the betrayer first, even before the betrayed. By the time she understood the weight of her actions, the damage had been done. She couldn't simply erase the years she had ignored me. She couldn't unmake the hurt, the loss of trust, the isolation I had felt. And though she tried, the realization that she had pushed me away, that she had lived a secret life while I waited for her attention, was devastating. I didn't respond to her attempts at reconciliation immediately. I needed to see if the regret she carried would translate into something tangible. And slowly it did. The nervousness, the hesitation, the quiet sorrow in her eyes, it was a shadow of the betrayal she had inflicted. Every apology was a tremor of acknowledgement. Every glance, a confession of truth. Months passed. We spoke rarely, but the tension was always there, a palpable weight between us. She tried to reach out, to repair, to show that her regret was real. And yet, I realized something crucial. Regret alone doesn't fix betrayal. Regret alone doesn't rebuild trust. Regret only ensures that the person who caused the pain feels it, but the one who was hurt carries it forever. And in that understanding, I found my own closure. I could forgive her, perhaps someday, but forgetting would never be an option. The years she ignored me, the time she spent betraying my trust, had left marks that wouldn't vanish. The strange thing, though, was how satisfying it was to watch her struggle with the consequences of her choices. The laughter that once masked her indifference was gone, replaced by unease and remorse. She realized, finally, that ignoring someone for years, dismissing their presence and betraying their trust, comes with a cost, and that cost she now knew was unbearable. By the time I decided to leave the home I had once shared with her for good, I felt a sense of closure that had eluded me for years. Her regret had consumed her in ways she could never hide, and though it didn't erase my pain, it allowed me to walk away without bitterness. As I packed the last of my things and looked at her one final time, I realized something profound. Betrayal doesn't always end in immediate disaster. Sometimes it festers quietly, ignored by the betrayer, until the consequences arrive slowly, painfully, and without mercy. And sometimes the ones who cause the most pain are the ones who suffer it the longest, living with the weight of every choice, every dismissal, every lie. I walked out the door, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. She stood there, silent, regret etched into her expression, and I knew she would never forget. And for once, neither would I. The years of being ignored, the quiet suffering, and the betrayal had all led to this moment. Clarity, closure, and a reminder that some wounds take years to heal, but some lessons last a lifetime.